Before Cicely, Tyson, and Morgan Freeman became household names, they starred in a groundbreaking TV movie that sparked national controversy, influenced a president's cabinet choices, and faced accusations of fraud. Yet the real story behind this Hallmark production is even stranger than fiction. Fact 1. The real reporter watched himself on screen. One of the strangest moments during the making of the Marva Collins story happened when reality and Hollywood literally came face to face. Chicago Sun-Times journalist Zay N. Smith, the reporter who first discovered Marva Collins and brought her story to the world in the late 1970s, got to watch an actor play him in the movie. Even more unusual, Smith actually met Jimmy Skaggs, the Chicago actor cast to portray him on screen during the film's production. The whole situation started because Smith had written the original article that launched Collins into national consciousness. Back in the late 70s, Smith received a curious letter from a West Side teacher who had read one of his stories about how little Chicago high school students knew about Shakespeare. The letter challenged his findings with a bold claim that her students could recite passages from the Bard, and it was signed simply Marva Collins. When Smith visited her second-floor classroom in Garfield Park, he was amazed to find 4-year-olds reading better than many high school sophomores. His article about this woman who had left the Chicago public school system to teach her own way spread like wildfire, eventually catching the attention of 60 Minutes and then CBS, who decided to make the television movie. When production began in Chicago during November and December of 1980, the filmmakers decided Smith's role in discovering Collins was important enough to include in the story. A photographer captured the surreal moment when Smith met Skaggs, with Cicely Tyson standing between them, all smiling for the camera. Smith later recalled the experience of seeing someone else portray his investigative work that had started the entire national conversation about Marva Collins and her unconventional teaching methods. Fact 2. The movie funded a real school expansion. The Marva Collins story did something that most television movies never accomplish. It directly changed the real-life story it was telling. When Marva Collins received her payment from Hallmark Hall of Fame for the rights to her life story and the production of the 1981 film, she didn't pocket the money or use it for personal gain. Instead, she immediately invested every dollar back into West Side Preparatory School, using the funds to expand her operation and move to a new facility that could accommodate far more students. Before the movie aired, Collins had been running her school out of the second floor of her own home in Chicago's Garfield Park neighborhood, working with just a small handful of students in what was essentially a one-room schoolhouse. The space was cramped, the resources were limited, and she could only accept a tiny fraction of the families who wanted to enroll their children. But the television movie changed everything. The payment she received gave Collins the financial breathing room she desperately needed to take West Side Prep to the next level. By 1982, just 1 year after the movie premiered on CBS, the school had grown dramatically. Enrollment jumped from that original small group of students to 200 children, with an astonishing waiting list of over 1,000 families hoping to get their kids into the school. The new facility allowed Collins to hire additional teachers and create proper classrooms while still maintaining her hands-on teaching approach. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. A movie about a teacher who refused federal funding and operated on a shoestring budget became the very thing that allowed her school to truly thrive and reach hundreds more students who had been labeled unteachable by the Chicago public school system. Fact 3. It was Morgan Freeman's early TV movie role. When you watch the Marva Collins story today, it's impossible not to recognize Morgan Freeman as Clarence Collins, Marva's supportive husband who helps her transform their home into a school. But in 1981, Freeman was far from the legendary Oscar-winning actor we know now. This Hallmark Hall of Fame production came during a crucial transition period in his career, representing one of his earlier television movie roles as he worked to establish himself beyond the stage and children's television. At the time of filming, Freeman was 43 years old and had spent years building his reputation primarily in theater and as a cast member on the PBS children's show The Electric Company during the early 1970s. He had appeared in some films and television projects, but he wasn't yet a household name. Taking on the role of Clarence Collins gave Freeman the chance to play a grounded, realistic character in a prestigious television production that would be seen by millions of viewers across America when it aired on CBS. In the film, Freeman portrayed Clarence as the steady, loving presence who supports his wife's bold decision to leave the Chicago public school system and open her own school in their home. His performance captured the tension of a husband who initially worries about the financial risks and logistical challenges of converting their upstairs apartment into a classroom, but ultimately becomes his wife's greatest advocate. The role required Freeman to balance skepticism with devotion, showing a man who trusted his wife's vision even when it seemed impossible. This kind of nuanced, supporting performance helped demonstrate Freeman's range as an actor and contributed to the steady climb that would eventually lead him to starring roles in major films and multiple Academy Award nominations. Fact 4. Filmed in just 2 months during winter, the production team behind the Marva Collins story made a decision that seemed simple on paper but created some genuinely difficult working conditions. They chose to film the entire movie on location in Chicago during November and December of 1980, right in the heart of one of the city's coldest and most unpredictable seasons. Director Peter Levin and his crew had just 2 months to capture everything they needed for this 100-minute television movie, and they did it while battling freezing temperatures, early sunsets, and the kind of bitter wind that Chicago is famous for during winter. Filming on location in the actual neighborhoods where Marva Collins taught added an undeniable authenticity to the production that a Hollywood soundstage could never replicate. The cast and crew worked in the real Garfield Park area on Chicago's West Side, capturing the genuine look and feel of the inner-city environment that was so central to Collins' story. The weather conditions, while challenging, also helped create the atmosphere of struggle and determination that defined Collins' journey to open her own school despite overwhelming obstacles. The tight 2-month shooting schedule meant that everyone involved had to work efficiently and stay focused, with little room for delays caused by weather or other complications. Cicely, Tyson, Morgan Freeman, and the child actors who played Collins' students all had to perform in conditions that were far from comfortable, often shooting exterior scenes when temperatures dropped well below freezing. The production wrapped in December of 1980, giving the editors and post-production team nearly a full year to prepare the film for its premiere broadcast on CBS on December 1, 1981. Fact 5. The movie aired just before a major scandal. The timing of the Marva Collins story's premiere on December 1, 1981, turned out to be incredibly ironic, because just a few months later, the glowing portrait of Collins presented in the film came under serious attack. By early 1982, Collins found herself at the center of a major public controversy, facing accusations that struck at the very heart of the inspiring narrative that millions of television viewers had just watched. The accusations came from multiple sources, most notably from an unemployed substitute teacher named George N. Schmidt, who published detailed criticisms in a publication called Substance News. Schmidt claimed that Collins had grossly exaggerated her students' test scores and achievements, and that the entire Marva Collins story was, in his words, a hoax designed to damage public education. Other critics, including some disgruntled parents and former teachers at Westside Prep, piled on with their own complaints about the school's operations and Collins' methods. One of the most damaging allegations centered on money. Throughout the movie and in her public statements, Collins had emphasized that she refused to accept federal funding, portraying herself as independent from government support. However, investigators discovered that Collins had received $69,000 through the Federal Comprehensive Employment and Training Act, known as CETA. Collins defended herself by claiming the money had come through a social services agency and that she had no idea it originated from the federal government in Washington. The scandal created a media firestorm, with reporters who had previously written nothing but glowing profiles now scrambling to investigate the other side of the story. Collins appeared on The Phil Donahue Show twice to defend herself against the accusations, maintaining that she had no apologies to make for her work with children. Fact 6. Edward Asner introduced the film. When the Marva Collins story aired on CBS on December 1, 1981, viewers didn't immediately jump into the drama starring Cicely, Tyson, and Morgan Freeman. Instead, the broadcast opened with a special introduction from Edward Asner, one of television's most recognizable faces at the time, who appeared on screen to set the stage for what audiences were about to watch. Asner's role was to provide context about Marva Collins and help viewers understand just how remarkable her achievements with underprivileged children in Chicago had been. This kind of introduction was a signature element of Hallmark Hall of Fame Productions, which had been creating prestigious television movies since 1951. The series often featured well-known actors or public figures introducing their presentations, giving the broadcasts an extra sense of importance and gravitas. By choosing Asner for this particular introduction, Hallmark selected someone who carried significant cultural weight. At the time, Asner was at the height of his fame, starring as Lou Grant in the critically acclaimed drama series of the same name, and he was also known as a passionate activist for social causes. Asner's introduction summarized Collins' stunning work transforming children who had been written off as unteachable by the Chicago public school system into successful students who could read Shakespeare and excel academically. He helped frame the story for viewers who might not have seen the original 60-minute segment about Collins or read the newspaper articles that had made her famous. The introduction gave the film an authoritative starting point, signaling to audiences that they were about to watch something significant rather than just another made-for-television movie. Fact 7. Reagan wanted the real Marva for his cabinet. The success of the Marva Collins story brought Collins far more than just national recognition and speaking opportunities. In 1980, shortly before the movie even aired, President Ronald Reagan and his team began seriously considering nominating Collins for one of the most powerful positions in American soils: education. Secretary of Education. The idea of putting a former inner-city teacher who had rejected the public school system in charge of the entire nation's education policy was bold, controversial, and perfectly aligned with Reagan's vision of educational reform. Reagan's interest in Collins made perfect sense from his administration's perspective. Collins represented everything Reagan wanted to promote: individual initiative, success without government dependency, and proof that private alternatives could outperform public institutions. Her story of leaving the Chicago public schools to create her own successful academy fit neatly into conservative arguments about school choice and limited government intervention. Reagan even cited Collins by name in 1983 when he unveiled a national program to combat adult illiteracy, holding her up as an example of what one determined person could accomplish. However, Collins made a decision that surprised many people. Before Reagan could formally offer her the position, Collins withdrew her name from consideration and announced publicly that she would not accept the job if it were offered. She explained that she believed she could make a bigger difference by working directly with children in her classroom than by sitting behind a desk in Washington, dealing with bureaucracy and paperwork. Collins preferred teaching one student at a time over trying to reform the entire American education system from a government office. Fact 8. A famous basketball player's story was omitted. The Marva Collins story captured many of Collins's incredible achievements, but the film obviously couldn't include what would become one of her most famous and controversial success stories, simply because it hadn't happened yet when the movie was made. In 1982, just months after the film premiered, a 23-year-old former college basketball player named Kevin Ross walked into Westside Preparatory School and enrolled in Collins' 7th grade class, creating one of the most striking images in American education history. A 6'9" tall man squeezing into a desk built for a 9-year-old child. Ross had spent 4 years playing basketball at Creighton University on a full athletic scholarship, appearing in 104 games for the team. But when his college eligibility ran out in 1982, Ross left the university reading at approximately a 2nd grade level, unable to perform basic academic tasks that most elementary school students could handle. Creighton arranged for Ross to attend Westside Prep and paid his yearly tuition of $6,500, hoping Collins could help him learn the reading and writing skills he should have developed years earlier. The story became a national scandal and symbol of how some universities exploited student athletes, using them for their athletic abilities while failing to provide them with a real education. Ross later said that secretaries at Creighton would complete his assignments for him and that he would find tests already filled out on his desk with instructions to just put his name on them. Collins worked intensively with Ross, teaching him vowels and basic grammar from scratch. He graduated from Westside Prep in May of 1983 and even received a congratulatory phone call from President Reagan. Fact 9. Cicely Tyson shadowed the real Marva. Cicely Tyson took her preparation for playing Marva Collins extremely seriously, going far beyond just reading the script and learning her lines. Before filming began in November of 1980, Tyson made multiple trips to Chicago to spend time with the real Marva Collins, observing her in action inside her classroom at Westside Preparatory School. Tyson wanted to understand not just what Collins taught, but how she taught, capturing the specific mannerisms, speech patterns, and teaching techniques that made Collins so effective with children who had been labeled unteachable by the Chicago public school system. During these observation sessions, Tyson watched Collins interact with her students, noting how she moved around the classroom, how she spoke to each child individually, and how she maintained both discipline and warmth simultaneously. Collins had a very particular style that combined high academic expectations with constant encouragement and praise, and Tyson knew that getting these details right would be crucial to creating an authentic portrayal. The actress paid close attention to Collins's posture, her gestures, and the way she commanded attention from a room full of young children while still making each student feel valued and capable. Tyson later spoke publicly about the time she spent with Collins, explaining that experiencing the real classroom environment helped her understand the passion and dedication that drove Collins to leave the security of the public school system and risk everything to open her own school. The research paid off in Tyson's performance, which was widely praised for its authenticity and emotional depth. Critics and audiences felt like they were watching the real Marva Collins on screen. And Tyson's work earned her a nomination for the Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Limited Series or Movie. Fact 10. 3 presidents offered her jobs. Marva Collins achieved something that almost no educator in American history has ever accomplished. She was approached by 3 different United States presidents from both political parties, all asking her to serve as Secretary of Education, and she turned down every single one of them. The national attention generated by the Marva Collins story and the ongoing media coverage of her work at Westside Preparatory School made Collins one of the most famous teachers in America, and presidents saw her as someone who could bring real classroom experience and proven success to the nation's highest education post. Ronald Reagan was the first to consider her for the position in the early 1980s, seeing her story as perfect proof of his education philosophy. Years later, President George H.W. Bush also asked Collins to take on the role of Secretary of Education, believing her methods and her success with disadvantaged students could help shape national education policy. Then, during the 1990s, President Bill Clinton extended the same offer, hoping Collins would bring her innovative approach to his administration's education reform efforts. Each time, Collins gave the same answer: no thank you. She explained repeatedly that she believed her impact would be greater working directly with students in her classroom than trying to change the entire education system from a government office in Washington. Collins felt strongly that teaching one child at a time, showing them individual attention and high expectations, mattered more than writing policy papers or attending cabinet meetings. She also worried that the bureaucracy and politics involved in being Secretary of Education would take her too far away from what she loved most, which was the daily interaction with children who needed her help. Fact 11. The film sparked backlash from teachers. The Marva Collins story was meant to be an inspiring television movie celebrating an innovative teacher, but it ended up creating serious tension and anger within the Chicago education community. After the film aired in December of 1981, CBS and the Chicago Sun-Times made a decision that seemed well-intentioned, but turned out to be incredibly controversial. They printed and distributed 200,000 copies of the movie script directly to Chicago public schools, presumably as an educational resource or inspirational material for teachers and students. This mass distribution backfired spectacularly. Many Chicago public school teachers felt deeply insulted by the film and saw the script distribution as a direct attack on their profession and their daily work in difficult circumstances. The movie portrayed Collins as a hero who had to leave the public school system because it was failing children, showing Collins clashing with bureaucratic administrators, unsupportive colleagues, and a principal who disapproved of her teaching methods. The film's narrative essentially positioned the public schools as the problem and Collins' private alternative as the solution, which understandably made thousands of public school teachers feel like their hard work and dedication were being dismissed or criticized. The script included a synopsis that claimed after just 1 year under Collins' teaching, every one of her students tested at least 5 grades higher, which seemed to suggest that public school teachers simply weren't trying hard enough or using the right methods. Teachers argued that they faced challenges Collins didn't have to deal with, including large class sizes, limited resources, mandatory curriculum requirements, and students with complex needs beyond just academics. The distribution of 200,000 scripts felt like rubbing salt in the wound, forcing teachers to confront a narrative that painted them as part of a broken system. Fact 12. Prince later donated $500,000 because of her story. The impact of the Marva Collins story reached far beyond the world of education and government, touching one of the biggest music stars on the planet in an unexpected way. Years after the television movie aired, the artist known as Prince became deeply interested in Marva Collins and her teaching methods, eventually becoming one of her most generous supporters and even showcasing her in one of his music videos. Prince was so moved by what Collins had accomplished with disadvantaged children in Chicago that he donated $500,000 to the West Side Preparatory School Teacher Training Institute, which Collins had, created to teach her methodology to other educators. Prince's connection to Collins went beyond just writing a check. He visited West Side Prep to meet Collins in person and observe her classes, telling her that he wished he could have attended a school like hers when he was growing up. The two formed a genuine friendship based on their shared belief that every child deserves high expectations and individual attention regardless of their background or circumstances. Prince became so involved with Collins's work that he agreed to serve as the co-founder and honorary chairman of her National Teacher Training Institute. In 1994, Prince gave Collins an even more visible platform by featuring her in the music video for his song, "The Most Beautiful Girl in the World," one of his most romantic and popular tracks from that era. Seeing Collins appear in a Prince music video was surreal for many people who knew her primarily as an educator, but it demonstrated how her influence had spread across different worlds and how her story continued to inspire people more than a decade after the television movie first introduced her to millions of Americans. Fact 13. A journalist called it a complete hoax. The most aggressive and sustained attack on the Marva Collins story and Collins herself came from an unexpected source. George N. Schmidt, an unemployed substitute teacher who had started publishing a monthly education newsletter called Substance News. In February of 1982, just a few months after the movie aired to widespread acclaim, Schmidt published an article with a shocking headline that declared, "The Marva Collins story is a hoax," and claimed it was aimed at further crippling public education in Chicago and around the country. Schmidt didn't stop with just one article. He published tens of thousands of words across multiple issues of Substance News, systematically attacking Collins's claims about her students' achievements and questioning whether her teaching methods actually produced the miraculous results that the television movie and media coverage had portrayed. Schmidt argued that Collins was nothing more than an average classroom teacher who used drill-based instruction with small, carefully selected groups of children, and that the media had failed in their responsibility to investigate her claims properly. One particularly damaging accusation from Schmidt suggested that Collins would parade only one or two highly capable students in front of reporters and visitors, having them recite Shakespeare or perform other impressive demonstrations, while the rest of her students couldn't necessarily do the same things. Schmidt claimed that when journalists came to observe Collins' classes, they only saw the showcase students rather than getting an accurate picture of what all the children at Westside Prep could actually accomplish. His investigation also uncovered the federal funding issue that contradicted Collins's public statements about refusing government money, adding fuel to the controversy that engulfed Collins throughout 1982. Fact 14. The school was built from discarded books. One of the most remarkable and ironic details about Westside Preparatory School is that Marva Collins built her classroom library almost entirely from books that the Chicago public school system had literally thrown away. When Collins opened her school in 1975 on the second floor of her home in Garfield Park. She had almost no money for supplies or materials, so she went to Chicago public schools and asked if she could take books that they were discarding. The schools gave her access to their cast-offs, and Collins filled her classroom with volumes that the very system she had left behind considered no longer worth keeping. What makes this story even more striking is what Collins did with those discarded books. While the public schools had deemed these books unnecessary or outdated, Collins used them to teach her students Shakespeare, Emerson, classical Greek philosophy, and other challenging works of literature that most educators thought were far too difficult for young children from disadvantaged neighborhoods. The books that one school system was ready to throw in the garbage became the foundation for teaching methods that would gain national attention and inspire a television movie. Collins believed that children, regardless of their background or economic circumstances, deserved to read the greatest works of literature ever written, and she wasn't going to let a lack of funding stop her from giving them that opportunity. She ran Westside Prep on what she called a shoestring budget, funded primarily by her own savings and the modest tuition payments from families who could afford to pay. The image of Collins teaching 4-year-olds to read from books that had been discarded as worthless perfectly captured her entire philosophy, that the so-called unteachable children could achieve remarkable things if someone just gave them high expectations, individual attention, and access to quality materials. Fact 15. The movie won an NAACP Image Award. Cicely. Tyson's portrayal of Marva Collins didn't just earn critical praise and an Emmy nomination. It also won her an NAACP Image Award, one of the most prestigious honors recognizing outstanding performances and creative work by people of color in film, television, music, and literature. The NAACP Image Awards, presented annually by the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, specifically celebrate achievements that promote positive portrayals and representations of African Americans and other minorities in entertainment and the arts. Tyson's recognition from the NAACP was particularly meaningful because the Marva Collins story centered on an African American woman who had dedicated her life to educating Black children in one of Chicago's most challenging neighborhoods. The film told a story of empowerment, resilience, and the belief that all children, regardless of race or economic background, deserve access to quality education and high expectations. Tyson's performance captured Collins' fierce determination, her unwavering belief in her students' potential, and her willingness to challenge a system she felt was failing the children who needed help the most. The dual recognition of both an Emmy nomination and an NAACP Image Award win demonstrated that Tyson's work resonated across different audiences and communities. The Emmy nomination showed that her performance met the highest standards of television acting in general, while the NAACP Image Award specifically honored how she brought dignity, strength, and authenticity to the portrayal of a real Black educator whose work had national significance. For Tyson, who had built her entire career on choosing roles that represented strong, realistic, non-stereotypical Black women, winning the NAACP Image Award for playing Marva Collins represented exactly the kind of meaningful recognition she valued most.